Hey YouTube, Awesome Writer here, coming at you with another topic video. This video is going to be sort of like a companion to the video I just made, which was what if Power Rangers didn't exist? Because it was talking about the idea of how would toku make it to the West or be perceived in the West or gain popularity in the West, if at all, if Power Rangers didn't exist, the kind of the positive and negatives that come from the Power Rangers name. And this one's going to kind of be talking about our real situation right now, which is that Power Rangers is very much dormant. You know, we do have the comics going, there's going to be an mmpr toy line, you have other odds and ends merch, but there's no current main show going on. And as this has happened, I've seen people say, well, now that means it's time to push Sentai out there and do Sentai dubs and do more streaming and DVD releases, and this could be Sentai's time. Almost like Sentai dubs or subs and it being more out there, and Rider 2 could replace Power Rangers. And I thought that was an interesting topic because it's kind of, like I said, a companion piece to that other video, because I think that the outcomes I could see are very similar. Because in that video I talked about how if Power Rangers didn't exist, I think that the positive would be you wouldn't have Power Rangers' reputation dragging stuff like Rider down, but at the same time I think Power Rangers being this pop culture phenomenon drew a lot of eyeballs to toku, and there's a chance that we wouldn't even care less about like what Sentai is. So I think that's kind of a similar situation here in a way. You know, we've been trying to make toku happen for a while here, whether it's, you know, more mainstream Rider merch or DVDs or Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, and it's very often seen as like, oh, that's Power Rangers, and it infuriates the purists, and I find that funny because I don't care if they call it Power Rangers. But anyway, that's kind of where we're at. And then Sentai, of course, is just kind of known as like, oh, that's Power Rangers, you know, it's cheap and cheesy, and, you know, even with the Sentai DVD releases, they have to put on their before there was Power Rangers, there was Super Sentai, which is kind of a double-edged sword, because I think when you see that, most casuals will probably think of how much they don't like Power Rangers aesthetic, but at the same time, you know, I could totally see a situation where if you were to release a Kira Major DVD or something cold, there would be some people that are probably like, oh, that's the show Power Rangers is based off of, but there might be people that think, oh, it's a Power Rangers ripoff. So, it's, again, the whole reputation of PR is a double-edged sword. But in terms of like the main topic of could Sentai and Rider replace PR? I mean, the thing is there's nothing to replace, and I don't think so. I do think that there's a possibility of like Rider and Sentai gaining more popularity, you know, as especially a lot of people get into stuff like anime and people are really into like Japanese shows and stuff. I could totally see it eventually at some point in the history of time developing a kind of following. I don't ever see it being as big as anime, like I said in that video, but I could totally see if the circumstances are eventually right that we could have it becoming a little bit more popular here, a little bit more accessible, which would be great. But I don't think it would replace PR, mainly because, again, there's nothing to replace for the general audience. Like, the idea that there is this appetite amongst the casual fandom for a Power Rangers-like show, I think is false. Like, obviously for the hardcore fandom, they're like, what do we do now that Power Rangers is off the air? It's not as if there's a million other better shows to watch. But they obviously are having this vacuum now that they might fill with Sentai and Rider if they haven't watched it. Sort of similar to, you know, when we had that very brief hiatus between RPM and Samurai, a lot of people's first Sentai was Shinkenger because people that had previously only watched PR and had an appetite for that type of thing migrated to Sentai with Shinkenger. So you're going to obviously have people that are currently into the show or into Power Rangers maybe checking out Sentai or Rider because that's something that they're into and they've been following the show religiously. However, from the point of view of the general public, the Jedi are evil! From the point of view of the Jedi public, I didn't mean to say that. From the point of view of the general public, it's almost like Power Rangers has been canceled for a long time. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that know it kind of was on in the background, but they don't care less. Like, they don't care at all. So I think for the general public, Power Rangers ended in the 90s. There's probably people that legitimately think it ended in the 90s and have no idea it continued for 30 years. There's probably people that effectively it just was canceled in the 90s because they put it out of their mind. So in terms of the casual audience, there's not an appetite to be like, oh, I need to check out Sentai now, because there's no vacuum there. It's such a niche thing. There's like no reason for those people to check it out. And as far as dubbed Sentai goes, you know, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Not because I'm like a purist about it, definitely far from it, but just because I've always found dubbed live action stuff to come across as funny, almost like a parody. I know it works for some people, apparently like the Ultraman stuff's been working for some people, but for me it just always reminds me of watching those bad dubbed movies and kind of like laughing at it, and it just makes me take it less seriously. Not like, again, Sentai is super serious, but it just makes it funny and more of like a parody of itself. Like, even, I think the last show I tried to watch with dubbing out of curiosity was Netflix's Dark, which is an amazing show. You should watch it. One of the best time travel shows of all time. But that's in German. And I tried to watch the dub and I just couldn't do it. It's just too awkward. So, I don't know. I just really don't think that if you were to bring Sentai here more either with subs or dubs, it would take off in the mainstream. I think it's possible for it to build a niche audience. In a way, it feels like a sort of the way I feel about the way a Power Rangers reboot would work, in terms of I don't think it would gain a mainstream audience, but I think it could gain its own little following. That's kind of the way I feel about it. I don't think it would gain mainstream following by any means. And I think that the Toku fandom, or at least some parts of the Toku fandom, kind of overestimate Sentai's popularity, you know, because they're always talking to their Toku friends and Toku fans on Twitter and Reddit or wherever, and they're like, oh man, we all love Sentai, that must mean the world must love it. And in reality, most people don't know or care about it. And they also talk about it like it's their Batman over there. Like, yes, Sentai is probably known by almost everybody in Japan, but as a kid's show, kind of like Blue's Clues or something like that. It's not like it's their Batman where it's known throughout the world. It's very much self-contained there to that small little niche. And so I think that people overestimate it, like, well, Sentai's thriving and it's an amazing big juggernaut in Japan, it's going to do well here. And I'm like, it's not really. People have this warped perspective like it's bigger than it is worldwide. Like the name Power Rangers is more recognizable worldwide. That's like without a doubt. Even when they, you know, have Sentai dubs or subs or whatever in other places of the world, they call it Power Rangers. Like, odds are if you were to ask someone what Power Rangers is in many different parts of the world, they'll know what it is, but they might not know what Sentai is. And so I think that Sentai fans get this false sense of it being more popular than it is, and then that makes them think like, well, then it'll just take off. Because we talk about like what an uphill battle Power Rangers would have if they did a reboot series or anything of the like, or an animated series with its reputation. I think attempting to bring Sentai more to the forefront, whether it's with subs or dubs, would face just as equal of an uphill battle. I think arguably even more so. Kind of similar to what I said in the previous video, I think if anything had a chance to gain more traction, it would be Rider, just because it is a little bit more different, a little bit more engaging, a little bit more serialized, because Sentai does include a lot of those things, even more so, that people make fun of about PR, especially the formula, the rinse-repeat formula. I think Rider would have a better chance. I'm not saying that Sentai couldn't gain a bigger following here, but I just don't think it would replace PR. I think it would face just as big of an uphill battle as Power Rangers in terms of trying to gain a bigger audience, if not more so. But what do you guys think? Do you think Sentai and Rider could replace Power Rangers here, even though there's not really anything to replace for the general audience? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for my videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.